My brother laughed when Dad slapped me across the face at his engagement party, and that was the moment I knew I was done being their doormat. My name is Jenna. I'm 33. And I've learned the hard way that sometimes family is just a more socially acceptable form of betrayal. It started the night my younger brother Caleb threw an engagement party for his fiancée, Dana. They'd just closed on their first condo together in Denver, and the whole extended family had been invited, about 40 people total, all crammed into a space that smelled like vanilla candles and wine spritzers. Caleb, 30, had always been our parents' pride and joy. He went into real estate after college, married young, and had 2 kids before he turned 28. Every time he sneezed, Mom acted like it was a Nobel-worthy achievement. Meanwhile, I was the loner daughter, child-free, self-employed, and living in the mountains with my rescue dog, Murphy. Never mind that I ran a successful risk assessment consultancy or that I owned both my own home and a second property up in Telluride. None of it mattered. Because I didn't have children, my life was apparently a meaningless blur of me time and dog selfies, as my father liked to say. That night, I showed up to the party with a bottle of Cabernet and a handmade leather-bound planner I knew Dana would love. She gave me a genuine smile, even a hug, and for one fleeting second, I thought maybe, just maybe, the air between us had shifted. I should have known better. About an hour in, Caleb tapped his glass to get everyone's attention. The buzz of chatter dissolved into soft murmurs as he stood with his arm around Dana. "We're just so grateful for everyone being here," he began. "Seriously. It means a lot." Then Dana stepped forward. "But there's one more thing we'd like to ask," she said, her voice syrupy sweet. "It's kind of a big favor. Jenna? Could you come up here for a sec?" My stomach dipped. Everyone was watching me as I made my way to the front. Mom and Dad stood behind them, arms crossed like this was a board meeting and I was about to get fired. Dana turned toward me with a smile that didn't reach her eyes. "You know how tight things have been financially, with the new mortgage and the wedding," she said. "We were wondering if we could use your mountain cabin for our honeymoon." That would have been fine. Reasonable even. But then Mom added, "Actually, your father and I were thinking it would be better if you just gave it to them. Signed it over." The room went silent. "You're not even using it properly," Dad chimed in, his voice booming. "You just go up there with that mud of yours and isolate. Vacation homes are for families, Jenna." "That mud has a name," I wanted to scream. "Murphy. He saved my life more than any of them ever had." "I'm not giving it away," I said, trying to keep my voice calm. "You don't even have children," Mom shot back, eyes glittering. "What do you need a family retreat for?" Dana actually giggled. "Come on, Jenna. Don't be selfish. Think about the kids. They deserve to build memories there." "You can build memories at literally any Airbnb," I said, my voice shaking. "I worked my ass off for that place." That's when Dad's face turned red. "Your brother is building a real life. You? You're just wasting space, some barren spinster who thinks dogs replace people." The words hit like a brick. I had struggled with fertility for years, secretly, painfully, and they all knew that. Yet here they were, weaponizing it against me like I was defective. Then it happened. Dad's hand flew up and slapped me hard across the cheek. The sound cracked across the room like a gunshot. "And Caleb?" He clapped. He actually clapped. So did Dana. Not everyone joined in. Some looked away. Some were frozen. But enough hands came together to make it feel like the entire room was applauding my humiliation. I stood there, stunned, fingers on my burning cheek. I looked at my family. I looked at the people I'd grown up trusting. And I said, "I'll remember this." I left the gift, walked out in silence, and drove home with Murphy's warm breath against my side. But the fire had already started burning in my chest. Because if they wanted war, I knew exactly where to hit them. Where it would hurt the most. Where it would be quiet. Legal. Permanent. and utterly devastating. The first thing I did when I got home was pour a glass of bourbon and open my laptop. Murphy curled up beside me on the couch, his head on my thigh like he could feel what I was planning. They thought I would just go home and cry. That I'd let their insults roll off my back like every other time. Not this time. You see, what Caleb and Dana didn't know, what none of them realized, is that while they were treating me like a third-string family member, I was quietly holding the keys to all their futures. Literally. First, there was Caleb's mortgage. He'd begged me to co-sign 2 years ago when his credit was too low to qualify solo. I'd said yes because he was my brother. And because, God help me, I thought helping him might finally make me feel included. I called the bank that night. "Hi," I said calmly. "I'm one of the co-signers on a mortgage for a property in Englewood, Colorado. I have some concerns about ongoing financial abuse involving the primary borrower. What are my options for removal?" The man on the line paused. "We can't remove you directly, but we can initiate a reassessment of the loan. If the primary borrowers don't qualify on their own, the loan may be at risk of default." Perfect. Next, I drafted a letter of resignation from my role as power of attorney for my parents' financial accounts. I'd been handling everything for the past 6 years, because Dad said he couldn't keep up with bills after Mom's early-onset Parkinson's symptoms began. That role had come with full access. Full transparency. And let me tell you, what I'd found would have made any ethical auditor sick. For starters, Dad had been funneling over $40,000 into Caleb's accounts. Transfers marked as family emergency or utilities, but none of them legit. Money that was pulled directly from Mom's long-term care savings. Worse? He'd opened 2 credit cards in Mom's name and maxed them out to pay for Dana's business startup. I had the bank statements. The login screenshots. The emails. All of it. So I called Adult Protective Services. "I need to report suspected financial abuse of a vulnerable adult," I said. "I have documentation, detailed records showing fraudulent transfers, unauthorized credit use, and coercion." The voice on the other end was suddenly serious. "We'll be opening a case immediately." Then I called the state's Elder Fraud Division. And the IRS. According to tax law, any loan over $17,000 that isn't repaid? That's taxable income. And Dad had forgiven over $40,000 to Caleb in the last 3 years. That alone could trigger penalties, wage garnishments, or audits. But I wasn't done. The fourth call I made was to Dana's employer, a private charter school where she worked as a financial aid coordinator. Her job required fiduciary responsibility and trust. But Dana had at least 3 open judgments against her, all tied to unpaid credit accounts. I'd found them easily on public records while filing her wedding gift card receipt in my finances. I called the school anonymously. "I just wanted to ask if your staff are required to disclose financial judgments," I said. "Because it seems like one of your employees may have omitted some rather significant ones." By the time I shut my laptop at 2:13 a.m., 6 calls had been made. 4 agencies alerted. 2 institutions prompted to reevaluate employment and loan eligibility. And 1 final message, an email with full documentation, sent to Mom's neurologist. Because here's the thing, medical professionals are also mandatory reporters of financial abuse involving cognitively impaired patients. I knew that would hit Dad where it hurt. Right in the image he tried so hard to maintain. The generous family man. The pillar of the community. Let's see how generous you feel when the state starts asking where your wife's money went. 3 days later, the first call came in. "Jenna, what the hell did you do?" Caleb's voice was a mix of panic and rage. "The bank just called. They're reassessing our loan. We could lose the house." "You mean the house I helped you buy?" I said, letting my voice drop to a cold whisper. "The one you tried to steal from me at your party?" "You're punishing my kids," he yelled. "No," I said. "I'm letting you face the consequences of your choices. Isn't that what you all told me to do?" He hung up. The next call came from Dad. His voice trembled, not with age, but with fear. "Jenna," he said, "there are investigators asking questions. About Mom's accounts. About the transfers." "I'm sure there are," I replied. "You were sloppy. And greedy. You had no right." "I had every right," I interrupted. "I was your financial agent. Which means I was legally responsible for protecting Mom's interests." "You committed elder fraud, Dad. You did it. I just stopped covering for you." Silence. "What do you want?" he finally asked. "I want you to feel what it's like to be powerless," I said. "I want you to live in the world you tried to shove me into." He hung up too. But that was just the start. The house of cards was wobbling. And I still had one more push to give. A push that would come in the form of a phone call from someone I never expected. The next domino didn't fall from my doing, it came from someone on the inside. 2 weeks after the engagement party from hell, I got a call from my cousin Layla. Caleb's childhood best friend. One of the few people at the party who didn't clap. "Jenna," she said, her voice tight. "I should have called sooner. I just didn't know what to do." I leaned back on my deck, Murphy dozing at my feet. "What is it?" "It wasn't spontaneous," Layla whispered. "That night? It was all planned." My spine straightened. "Planned?" "I overheard them before the party. Caleb, Dana, your parents, they were talking about how to get the cabin. Dana said the only way you'd cave was if they embarrassed you in front of everyone. They wanted witnesses," I said quietly. "Pressure I couldn't push back against. She even said you were too soft to fight them. That you'd give in to keep the peace." "Jenna, they were laughing about it." My stomach churned. I'd suspected it, but hearing it confirmed was like swallowing glass. "She also mentioned, if that didn't work, they were going to sue you." "For what?" "For emotional damages," Layla said. "They thought they could argue you'd always supported them financially, and that you owed them continued support. Dana's been collecting text messages and Venmo receipts as proof. She was planning to use my generosity as a weapon," I said, barely able to contain the nausea rising in my throat. "They said," and I quote, Layla continued shakily, "she's too sentimental to fight dirty. We'll make her cave like always." For a few moments, I didn't speak. Then I said, "Layla, if she calls you again, I want you to record everything. Can you do that?" A beat. Then, "Yes. I can." After we hung up, I opened Dana's public social media accounts. My fingers trembled, not with fear, but with fury. It was a goldmine. There she was, posting $90 brunches, spa selfies, and luxury shopping hauls on weekends when she'd claimed to be barely making rent. Photos of designer bags next to captions about scraping by. Screenshots followed. Direct quotes. Dana mocking me in messages. Telling friends I was an emotional piggy bank. Telling her followers that she manipulates softness for survival. I documented it all. And then I did something I never thought I'd do, I made it public. I didn't lie. I didn't embellish. I simply told the truth. In a single post titled "The Price of Family," I laid out everything: the party, the slap, the financial abuse, the fraud, the betrayal. I included photos of the bruises from my father's hand, screenshots of Dana's spending, her mockery. I ended with, "I didn't destroy my family. I just stopped protecting them from the truth." It spread like wildfire. Comments poured in. I was there. The slap was real. And the applause? Sickening. Dana borrowed money from me last year and said her kids were sick. Then I saw her in Cancun. My parents always said Jenna was cold. But if this is true? I don't blame her. Some defended them. Most didn't. More than a dozen people shared stories about Caleb and Dana's scams, neighbors, coworkers, even old classmates. But it wasn't just strangers watching. 3 days later, Dana showed up at my office. She stormed through the glass lobby, mascara smeared, hair unkempt. My receptionist intercepted her, but she pushed through. "You think this is funny?" she shrieked. "You're ruining lives." "You did that yourself," I said calmly, stepping into the lobby. "You're a monster, Jenna." I met her eyes. "You lied. You manipulated. You orchestrated a public ambush to shame me into handing over my property." "Say it again," Dana said, pulling out her phone and pointing it at me. "Say how you're destroying your own family." I pulled out my own phone. "Are you denying that you stood by and clapped when your fiancé's father assaulted me?" Dana froze. "Are you denying you knew about the credit fraud? The tax evasion? The money you took from Mom's care account?" I have documents," I said, raising my voice. "Witness statements. Screenshots. And now? I have your little meltdown on camera too." She lunged for my phone. Big mistake. Security was called. She was escorted out, screaming, flailing, claiming I was abusing her through lies. But the security tape told the truth. And just like that, another domino fell. Dana's employer was tagged in the video when someone reposted it. Within days, she was suspended pending an investigation into character violations. Caleb's real estate firm began receiving anonymous emails with links to the post and summaries of the financial fraud tied to his name. But the most satisfying blow came a week later, when I received a call from my attorney. "Jenna," he said, "Dana's lawyer has filed a cease and desist for defamation and emotional harassment." I almost laughed. "You mean she's suing me for sharing the truth?" "That's right," he replied. "But don't worry. Her case has no legs. Truth is an absolute defense." I nodded, heart beating slow and steady. "Good," I said. "Then let's file a countersuit. For emotional distress, harassment, and attempted financial coercion. Because if they wanted to play dirty, I'd show them just how clean justice could be." You'd think a cease and desist letter would be the height of the drama, but it was just the prelude. A week after Dana's public meltdown at my office, I got a letter from the state. Caleb and Dana's mortgage had officially entered pre-foreclosure. The bank determined they didn't qualify on their own. They had 30 days to pay the balance. Or the house, their dream condo, would be gone. The next day, the IRS launched a formal audit on Dad. He'd failed to report over $40,000 in forgiven loans. Which, as I'd learned through years of managing their finances, counted as taxable income. With penalties. Then Adult Protective Services contacted me. They'd escalated the elder fraud case. Investigators had already interviewed Mom. She'd told them she'd noticed strange account activity, but every time she'd asked, Dad brushed her off or said she wasn't remembering clearly. They believed her. And they were moving forward with criminal charges. Meanwhile, Dana's suspension turned permanent. Turns out, when your job involves handling financial aid for vulnerable students, being caught in a public scandal involving fraud, coercion, and manipulation isn't a good look. Her employer didn't even wait for a hearing. They cited reputational damage and risk to institutional trust. She was fired. And Caleb? He lost his biggest client after someone anonymously shared a summary of the financial mess tied to his name. But the collapse wasn't done. CPS launched a wellness check after seeing Dana's social media history, posts she'd made during our fight that painted her as the victim of toxic childless jealousy, complete with photos of her kids left alone while she ranted on live video. The report found enough to mandate parenting classes and ongoing home visits. Nothing that warranted removing the kids. But enough that Caleb and Dana were shaken to the core. And enough to destroy the last illusion of their perfect family life. Then came the call from Dad. Not yelling this time. Just tired. "Jenna," he said, voice rough. "We need to talk. There's nothing left to say. They're investigating me. Your mother's accounts, everything. Is that what you wanted?" "No," I said flatly. What I wanted was for you not to steal from her. What I wanted was not to be slapped across the face for refusing to hand over something I earned. She's confused. She gave me permission. She didn't. And even if she had, her condition makes it legally meaningless. You preyed on your own wife. The silence that followed was suffocating. I'm not a monster, he said at last. You just act like one. Click. I didn't speak to him again. But I did visit Mom. She'd been placed in a care facility, finally getting the support and supervision she deserved. On her good days, she remembered me. She held my hand, sometimes cried when I walked through the door. I always knew you were the strong one, she whispered once. I'm sorry it took me so long to see what they were doing. She didn't say Dad's name. I didn't ask. As for Dana, her spiral wasn't over. She tried to rally support on social media. Claimed I was ruining innocent children's lives, that I'd weaponized money to punish a family out of spite. But it backfired. The people who'd seen the slap. Who'd read my post. Who'd seen the security footage. They weren't buying it. Even mutual friends began backing away. Her carefully curated image crumbled under the weight of receipts. She showed up at my house 3 weeks later. Eyes hollow. Hair messy. Her car, a beat-up Hyundai that barely ran, smoked as it idled in my driveway. Jenna, she said when I opened the door. Please. We need to talk. I didn't move. About what? The kids, they're going to be homeless. Caleb's working nights at a warehouse. I haven't found anything. CPS is breathing down our necks. Please. Why are you here? She looked down, tears forming. I thought I could beat you, she whispered. I thought if I humiliated you enough, you'd fold. You always did before. And when I didn't? You turned into someone else, she said. Someone powerful. I stared at her for a long time. Then I said, no. I turned into myself. She collapsed into a heap on the front step, sobbing. Whispering apologies. Swearing she didn't mean it to go this far. But I didn't console her. Not this time. I hope your kids find peace, I said finally. But I'm not responsible for fixing what you broke. Then I shut the door. And locked it. From that moment on, I knew they couldn't hurt me anymore. Not with guilt. Not with lies. Not with blood. Because sometimes, the cleanest cut comes from finally walking away. 3 months passed. Caleb and Dana lost the condo. They moved in with his in-laws across state lines, 4 people crammed into 2 rooms and a half-finished basement. The last I heard, Dana was working retail, shifts that left her sore and silent. Caleb hadn't found anything better than seasonal labor. Dad pled guilty to financial elder abuse. He avoided jail time, but the conditions were brutal: restitution, community service, restricted access to financial accounts. His health took a nosedive after the court proceedings. Stress, the doctors said. Mom never saw him again. She remained in the care facility. I visited her every week. On her good days, she smiled at Murphy and asked for chamomile tea. On her bad days, she called me Lydia, her sister's name, but she always looked calm. Peaceful. She was finally safe. As for me, I was thriving. Not in a dramatic, revenge movie way. Just, quietly, beautifully free. The promotions came once I stopped dragging my family's chaos behind me. Clients respected the boundaries I set. My weekends belonged to me again, filled with long hikes, quiet mornings with Murphy, and spontaneous adventures with Luke, the man I'd met through a mountain rescue volunteer group. Luke didn't ask me why I didn't want kids. He didn't flinch when I mentioned the fertility battles. He just listened. Stayed. And loved the parts of me my family had tried to shame into silence. We're not rushing anything. He has his own cabin now, just a few miles from mine. Sometimes we hike to the summit between our places and eat lunch on the rocks overlooking the valley. We talk about building something someday. But for now, peace is enough. People still ask if I regret it, lighting the match that burned my ties to the people who raised me. I don't. Because I didn't start the fire. They did. That night, when Caleb clapped as Dad slapped me, that wasn't a family reacting in anger. That was a family revealing itself. And I believed them. I didn't destroy them. I just finally stopped shielding them from consequences. I stopped playing the peacekeeper. The giver. The quiet one. I stopped mistaking survival for love. And now? Now, I wake up every morning to birdsong and soft fur and a life that is fully mine. Not shared. Not borrowed. Not held hostage. Mine. And that cabin? It's still standing. Still quiet. Still surrounded by pine trees and snow-capped peaks. But now, it's filled with laughter I choose. With people who knock because they're welcome, not because they believe they're entitled. Sometimes, revenge doesn't look like fire. Sometimes, it looks like peace. And peace? Is the sharpest blade of all.